Now you're going to learn how to cut doors and windows. I'm using the front of this house as an example. I've already completed the basic wall, and I'll point out a few differences to you. If you remember, the framing of the west wall was made 5 7/8 inches shorter on each end than the wall itself to account for thickness of the material exterior to the framing core. On the front wall, this same consideration must be taken. However, an additional 3.5 inches must be removed at each end because the wall coming perpendicular from behind will cozy up in the pocket under an extended top plate. The top plate on the west wall was cut 3.5 inches shorter at each end to account for an overlap of the wall it is tying into. The front wall has a 3.5 inch extended top plate at each end to fit into the slot created on the west wall. The same technique will be used on the east wall. To sum this up, I'm actually going to start the front wall 9 3/8 inches inset from each end. That comes from adding the 5 7/8 inches thickness of material outside of the framing core and an additional 3.5 inches to account for the width of the wall frame coming into the front wall. This will all make more sense later. With construction lines, mark the furthest outer edges of the windows and doors, such as I have already done. Place another construction line 6 foot 8 inches up from the bottom of the bottom sill. This marks my door and window height. Place another line closer to the bottom to mark the sill height of the windows. On this drawing, the windows are placed at 20 inches from the top of the foundation to top of the windowsill. Remember that the maximum for bedroom windows is 24 inches from the top of the foundation. I went ahead and cut the portion of the construction line across the bottom of the doorway because the door goes all the way down to the foundation. Next, draw out the windows on the window layer and the door on the door layer. You can use either the line tool or the rectangle tool. Afterwards, either turn off or delete the construction lines. Now, trim all the timbers inside of the space of the doors and windows. Everything seems to work just fine. Next, place a 5.5 inch headers above the windows and a 7.5 inch header above the door. A header is made of 2x6 and 2x8 lumber sandwiched together with a 1/2 inch sheet of plywood between them. They are used for additional support around doors and windows to compensate for the lumber you just cut out. Each header will extend 1.5 inch to each side of its door or window. To make the header, place a vertical line 5.5 inches from the top corner of a window upwards. Mirror this line to the other side of the window. You may have to turn off some snap behaviors to find the center mirror line. Either offset or move the lines 1.5 inch outward and connect them horizontally to each other. Trim all timbers that fall inside of the new rectangle you've created. The timbers that remain above the header are called cripples. Add an additional cripple to each end for additional support. At the bottom of the window, create a seal with a standard 2x4. Use the same technique as you used on the header to establish ends that extend an additional 1.5 inch in both directions. Connect the two lines horizontally to each other and trim timbers that fall inside of the rectangle. The timbers that remain below the seal are also called cripples. Place an additional cripple at each end for additional support. Vertically between the header and seal, place two timbers which are called trimmers. You can do this by drawing one vertical line and offsetting to the inside, then repeating on the opposite side. Next, add king studs. King studs are just normal studs but placed flush against the window framing and extending all the way from the bottom of the top plate to the top of the bottom sill. You can copy an existing stud. After placing all the components, remove the blue window rectangle that was drawn in the beginning to see a completely framed out window. Doors are done the same way, except they do not have bottom sills or cripples. This is my completed wall with all the doors and windows framed out.